What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the NBA Betting Show. We got a big night on the hardwood tonight in the association. 11 games on the slate, and we have some plays one way, shape, or form or another on, I think, half of them, if not more. I'm your host, as usual, Dane Martinez, the spitting statistician. We got the prop god in the building. We've got Noops in the building. They are so hot. They are sweating steam with their plays recently. So we have to have, I'm telling Noops, it gets hot out here. You're sweating so much because you're so hot, but we got to get you ready for a big night. We're going to get you some cash. Hopefully you could parlay some of these together. If you have promos, if you have boosts, whatever the case may be, we are here to get you a little bit of cash. So let's dive right on into it, because I know some people, like we have here in the comments, our guy P. Michael Hayes is like, he's been here since 11:30 waiting, but truth be told, he has not. He is joking, but it's all good. So for P. Michael Hayes and everybody else out there, let's get it started. Noops and I are both on this game between Minnesota and Phoenix. I think this one is very, very interesting. And Noops, I've been asking you this before. You've been taking a lot of the plays that are at a half, right? And you've been talking to me about how, people may hit this every now and then. And what that does is it raises the average up. So the algorithms and the books, they have to respect it. But the hit rate, it still is happening, infrequently. And that's something of an advantage. And you're doing that again with one of the big men from Minnesota.
Exactly, Dan. It's one of my favorite things to talk about when you get into some of these smaller markets, when you get down to player props. One of the most important things you need to do is not only figure out what you think the line should be, but why is the line the way the market has chose to set it? When I look at a lot of these halves, whether it be half a steal, half a three, half a block, anything like that, a lot of times it looks like to me these markets are set based on averages. Whereas when you look at hit rates, for example, you have somebody like Julius Randle. Now, he had a steal the last game, 2 before that, 3 before that. But all that does, again, is raise his average up. He's up to almost a steal per game this month. But you look at his hit rate, he has had a steal just about, 2 out of every 5 games, call it somewhere in that range. Again, more than half the time we're seeing him basically come away with no steals. A lot of that, I think, comes down to his role. They're looking for him to be a little more offensively oriented as he continues to get older. Was never really one of the best defenders in the league, certainly hasn't gotten any better. And just, barring someone really just dropping the ball near him or goofy stuff like that, not a lot of opportunities. So I struggle to see how he's going to get a steal. Our model over at FTN has him projected for just under a half, which again puts him pretty close to the line, but at plus 155, we're looking at a really nice bet here. We would price this closer to minus 170. So even say it like plus 150, or I'm seeing the lowest number right now, even at plus 130, you're looking at something like a well over a 40% EV bet. I like this quite a bit. Give me Julius Randle under half a steal, or if you will, not to have a steal.
Yeah, I like this. I mean, that's the better way to say it, right? Like, he won't get a steal. I love under a half. Sure, it's not like he's going to – this isn't the NFL where you could get credited for half a sack or something like that, right? So he's not going to get a steal. I like that, and I like that it's at plus money. And your argument makes sense to me, Noops. The idea that because he gets them, it raises the average, and so the books have to respect it, right, on some level. But the idea of the hit rate is very different, and that's what we are looking for. So I like that. I'm in the same game. Give me a different big man for Minnesota. Give me Naz Reid to go over 13.5 points. He's been good lately. Listen, his season average, to your point, Noobs, is right on this number. He's averaging 13.6 points a game, but he's gone over this in 5 of his last 7. And quite frankly, when he doesn't go over it, he's right there at 12 or 13. He's had 13 or more in 10 of his last 12 games. He's had 12 or more in his last 12 games. So he's right there. His shooting efficiency has been good. And guys, you know this. He's been hitting some from the outside recently as well. He's been getting some games with multiple 3-pointers. So I think this one is very viable. I go on over to our tools over at FTN, and I also see that the Phoenix Suns, they allow the 4th most fantasy points in the league to centers. They allow 27.4 fantasy points a game to the center position. So they're soft in there in the middle. They also allow, check this out, 11.9 offensive rebounds against them. That is the 6th most in the NBA. So when I look at Naz Reid, not only is he starting to do stuff from the outside, but with the potential of offensive rebounds, that is some easy buckets. We have a great edge on this over at FTN, we actually project him for 17 points in this one, which represents an 11% edge on this number. Naz has been good lately. Gobert has not really been on the floor as much lately. And I like Naz Reid to go over this number. You can get it at minus 115 over at FanDuel, Minnesota against Phoenix. I see you nodding your head there, Prop. I think you like that as well. You were on somebody in New Orleans. I got to tell you the truth. I saw you on social media the other day. I was on, who was it? I think CJ McCollum and Trey Murphy in New Orleans. And part of it was because I thought I saw DeJounte Murray questionable with like his hand, his wrist, his finger, whatever it was. And he wound up scoring a ton. And my Trey Murphy, the third prop, did not get home because DeJounte Murray was in there. So it's not your fault. I'm just a little pissed at DeJounte Murray, but I see you're going back to the well with him tonight against the Mavs.
Yeah, going back to it, so I like DeJounte over the 1.5 made threes. You can get that at minus 115 on Bet Rivers. Just looking at the head-to-head against Dallas, he's over in 4 out of his last 5 games. This is going back to the 2023 season. So he saw him this year. He hit 4 threes. He took 10. I really love the attempts. I like the volume. He's hit 3 or more threes against Dallas in 3 straight games. So I do like the latter leg up to 3. If you look at point guards against Dallas over the last 10 games, they've made 2 or more threes and 7 out of 10, averaging 2.9 threes. So pretty much 3 threes a game. If you filter it to look at the attempts, what I've noticed is when Zion Williamson plays, that DeJounte shoots more threes, but his assists go down. And I think it's because the ball's being distributed more evenly between him, Zion, and even Trey Murphy's been getting assists lately too, and then you still have CJ McCollum. So I think they've been focusing more on DeJounte getting shots up when that lineup is full. If you look at point guards against the Dallas Mavericks who have taken 5 or more threes, they've made 2 or more in 10 straight games, averaging 4 made threes a game. So I think it's a great opportunity for DeJounte for some ladder action. But I just kicked it off with a baseline over 1.5.
All right, that sounds good. He's been cooking, and like you said, Zion in and out of the lineup, still no BI for them either. So DeJounte going to get involved in that game against the Dallas Mavericks. Let's go back over to you, Noops. Another game, and this is interesting. We talked about this earlier in the day on the SiriusXM show for FTN, and you're on Miami, and it's interesting. Obviously, there's the Jimmy Butler saga, right? He's been suspended indefinitely, walking out of practice. He's trying to fight his way out with Pat Riley and out of Miami. And I think you mentioned that you are seeing that the books are almost downgrading the Heat after, kind of not having Jimmy Butler, but you actually think that that's not necessarily a bad thing for Miami.
Exactly. It's one of those situations where, from a purely numerical standpoint, you go back and look. If you assume Jimmy Butler's playing, and again, it's kind of like a video game world assumption where Jimmy Butler's playing, he's going to be happy. Everyone's just going to forget that both the franchise and Butler are actively going after each other and just doing silly things every single day. That's not how this is going to work. And I look at the market rating. One of the things you need to understand, the closing lines, the market gives you a lot of information. And as I kind of stack those up, I expected this game to be a little bit closer. Also looking at some of the performance stats, Miami has been honestly a little bit better this year when Butler hasn't played. Things seem to be a lot simpler. Tyler Hero knows he's taken over the offense. Bam Adebayo is there as the linchpin of the defense. Kyle Ware has been fantastic, and everyone seems to be focused on the negatives for this Miami team. The Cleveland Cavaliers have been fantastic, but tonight is a really bad spot for them. A 1-game road trip. They leave Cleveland, come down to Miami to play this game, to go back to play Atlanta tomorrow. If you look at the injury report, not that this is maybe a scheduled loss for Cleveland, but arresting a lot of guys here. Darius Garland is out. Isaac Okoro is out. Dean Wade also going to be out, as well as, there's one other guard I can't quite remember off the top of my head, but
LeVert.
It's kind of thank you. That's right, Karis LeVert. It's a bit of a cluster injury, and when you look at the way Miami has struggled, it's really been with the second unit. As I look at this team, the way Cleveland's going to be constructed tonight, Miami in a lot of ways is just kind of a poor man's version of Cleveland. Instead of Donovan Mitchell, we have Tyler Hero. Instead of Evan Mobley and Jared Allen, we've got Khalil Ware, we've got Bam Adebayo. Cleveland is not going to come in here and crush the bench minutes like they're used to tonight. So it's a tough spot. First night of a back-to-back, a little travel here. I think everybody is down on Miami, and this is the ultimate buy low spot here. Give me the Heat with the points and just a little sprinkle on the money line. I think they can surprise.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting when you talk about just the schedule, right? Like going down to Miami for 24 hours, then back up real quick. And you put that together with all of the availability issues that Cleveland is going to have. You mentioned not like a scheduled loss, but it's almost like on some level, you got to lose the battle to win the war sometimes. And that might be the way Cleveland is approaching this. And that could provide an opportunity right there, especially if you're getting 7 points. I like that at minus 110. Me and Prop are also on the same game, and I love it when Prop has a play that kind of supports what I am saying as well. So I'm going to go first. I'm taking the Celtics team total over 123.5 against the Bulls, and Prop is lotting already.
Okay.
So I love that even more. These are two of the top 7 scoring teams in the NBA. Our models over at FTN really like the over in this game. Okay. We had something like a 7% edge just in the over on the overall total, but I like teams against the Chicago Bulls. Listen, Boston scores a ton, 5th in the NBA, 117 a game. Chicago, though, is the second fastest paced team in the association. So I think they're going to even speed up Boston even more opportunities for Boston to score. And it's more opportunities for Boston to score against that blunt guts trash defense that is the Chicago Bulls. The Bulls allow 120 points a game, second most in the association. And there's going to be a ton of threes back and forth in this one, right? Boston makes 17.7 threes a game, leads the NBA. Chicago, not far behind, 16 a game. So I think they're going to be going back and forth. I think it's a fast pace, and I think Boston will get the better of this kind of shoot from deep, score quickly kind of matchup. Our models over at FTN project the Celtics for 126 points tonight, and that is definitely over the number. So I think Boston kind of gets right, scores, and they can put up a big time number against the Bulls tonight. So Prop, I saw you nodding. It only makes me think that you're kind of with me on this, and you are picking someone specifically to be part of that 3-point barrage that I anticipate for the Celtics.
Yes, indeed. Keeping it rolling with the threes for tonight, we're gonna go with Kristaps Porzingis over 3+. So I'm going past the 1.5 threes, and we're just going straight to the ladder here. Porzingis is that's plus 170, by the way, on Bet365. Porzingis has made 3 or more threes in 7 of his last 10 games. If you look at the history against the Bulls, it's great as well. Now he hasn't hit 3, but he's went over that baseline of 1.5 and 5 out the last 6. You look at the Bulls defense against centers who are attempting 4 or more threes a game, then they're over in 5 out of 10 and then 4 out of the last 5. You're looking at Porzingis against the Bulls, he takes 6.3 threes a game, and then just this season he's I'm sorry, not the season, but over the last 10, he's taking 6 threes a game. Looking at them at home, he's made 3 or more threes in 5 straight games. So I think it's a smash spot. Vucevic is not the guy who's going to step out. I target the Bulls defense with centers who can shoot at all times. So Porzingis is like the best go-to guy for something like this. So yeah, I love the Porzingis ladder tonight.
Fair enough. And I assume you would do the same thing with someone like Brook Lopez
Yep.
as well. I assume you would do the same thing with a lot of these big Karl Anthony Towns as well,
Yep.
right? Some of these big men that go ahead and shoot from the outside. So I like that to be sure. And I'm taking notes here because what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some of these guys together in the same game parlay. You get boosts from all sorts of sites here during the middle of the week. You can get 30% on it. I may even, Prop is telling you to go 3 or more. I may take some of these together and have it only be 1 3-pointer for a guy like Kristaps, or only 1 3-pointer from a DeJounte Murray, and put it all together and cash and give me the Miami Heat plus 10.5 points or something like that, and make it kind of no sweat might be for me. Moving our attention over to another game that Prop and Noops have plays on, but I will also ask them a follow-up question about one of these teams. We'll start with you, Noops. I'm talking about the Clippers and the Spurs who get it going. And listen, we all know Kawhi Leonard, one of the greats, champion multiple times here in the NBA. But Noops, one of the things you've been saying is, listen, Father Time is undefeated. And like other people, he's adjusting his game a little bit as time wears on.
Yeah, Dane, I can only hope that the great Zach Weisenberg Graham is not listening right now. I'm sure if you're familiar with all the great work at FTN, you see Zach. He's on every day giving out free money. The biggest Kawhi Leonard fan you're ever going to meet. Close your ears, Zach. We're a little closer to the end than we are the beginning here, fellas. It's been really tough for Kawhi. Again, in his prime, one of the best, most dominant basketball players that I ever remember seeing, not only defensively, but offensively was very good. The injuries are piled up. You could only have your knees cut so many times before you start to see just a little bit of less power out of the legs. And I think you see that in the way he's playing. A lot of his jump shots coming up short. And as anybody that plays basketball knows, when you're hitting the front of the rim, that means you got to hit the gym. You're just not quite there. You're not getting the same pop out of your legs. And Leonard, as we know, him and the coaching staff, Ty Lewis said, he's not officially on a minutes restriction, but he's not playing more than 30 minutes of the rest of the season. Absolutely no way. The Clippers know how important he is, and that's what we've seen in his 8 games so far this season. He's averaged just 23 minutes, and he's only made 2 or more threes in only 3 of those games so far. Tonight, his 3-point total again sits at 1.5. And I look at it, even the couple games he has hit 2, fairly lucky given the number of attempts. I like what, Prop was talking about earlier with DeJounte Murray. A lot of these come down to usage. Some nights they shoot the ball well, some nights they don't. But if the usage is there, you want to go over. If it's not, you want to go under. Kawhi not only is struggling shooting the ball at just 29% from deep this year, the usage just isn't there. He's just over 4 attempts per game. So put it all together. Our model at FTN projects him just to make 1.13. We have this at about a 16% edge. I like this quite a bit. It's a shame to have to fade Kawhi Leonard, but it's nicer to make money than it is to fade Kawhi Leonard. So I'll be just fine.
Yeah, it's not like, I love Kawhi as much as the next man, but I'm not allergic to money. You know what I'm saying? So I'll be on this one as well. Now, that's something on the Clippers side in this prop. You are on the other side here on San Antonio with someone who might be grabbing, wiping the boards clean tonight.
Yep. So I got Harrison Barnes at over 3.5 rebounds, minus 145 on FanDuel. He's over this number 9. I'm sorry. 9 out of his last 12 games against the Clippers. So in that head-to-head, averaging 4.5 rebounds per game. Looking at his last 10, he's over in 8 out of 10 and in 6 straight games, averaging 4.3 rebounds over those 10 and averaging 5.6 rebounds a game over his last 5. Looking at the Clippers, the rebounds they're allowing the power forwards over the last 10, they've allowed an opposing power forward to get 4 or more rebounds in 7 out of those 10 games and in 6 straight. And then I really like the usage. So Harrison Barnes is averaging 7.8, so 8 rebound chances over the last 10 games. If you look at the Clippers with power forwards who are averaging 8 or more rebound chances, they are over this number in 9 out the last 10 games, averaging 5.4 rebounds per game. So I think it's a sneaky little spot. He's been over this number consistently as of late. Even with Sohan being back, he went over twice against the Pacers. So, I think Sohan's been back for 1 game, but he still had 7 rebounds against Indiana. So I think Barnes will keep that trend going and keep grabbing those boards. So the 3.5 was my favorite one for him.
Fair enough. Hey, Prop, let me ask you something. The Spurs, I'm hearing they may be able to make a big addition on the horizon here. Listen, news out of Sacramento, guys, over the last 24, 48 hours that they're going to entertain the idea of moving De'Aaron Fox before his deal is up and they get nothing for him. And I was like, all right, that makes sense. And to me, forget about this Jimmy Butler talk. De'Aaron Fox moves the needle even more, in my opinion. The clutch player, the younger, entering his prime, a no-brainer max contract kind of guy. And in my mind, I'm like, which contender is going to wind up with him? Then I heard that he's interested potentially in joining the San Antonio Spurs. Prop, what is your reaction to that? The idea of De'Aaron Fox and Victor Wembanyama together for like years to come. I know the Spurs have the pick assets to be able to get this done, and this could really accelerate the process for Wembanyama and San Antonio. Prop, what was your reaction when you heard that?
So I was shocked. I thought that, with the Mike Brown firing that Fox would stay put. I thought that maybe it was some friction there, but it turns out that if this happens, then that wasn't the case. So what's the point of getting rid of your coach, number one? But looking at this move, I thought that it was going to be Trae Young teaming up with Wemby. But seeing Fox there with his explosiveness, now I know Trae Young is more of a pure facilitator at point, whereas Fox is a scorer, but Fox can still facilitate as well. I think that'll be a deadly 1-2 combo. And Wemby hasn't even got into full form yet. He still is not even attacking the paint as he should. So I think those two growing together, I think that'll be scary for the West. I mean, the West is already competitive, but you pairing those two together, it'll be hard to beat in the future.
Yeah, for sure. And then here's the thing, and like San Antonio has so many picks that they could spend some on this kind of deal and still have a lot of kind of, assets. So you can talk about something like Fox, Wemby, and right, like another big time young guy entering, growing together with Vic and De'Aaron Fox. So I think this is interesting. Noops, I have a related question for you on this. Like people are out here betting props, DFS lineups, pick'em games on Underdog. For the people that are on like season-long fantasy basketball, would you, and not only in this example, but in general, would you get this kind of news and be like, this deal is going to happen, or on some level, Fox is going to be gone, and then invest like in what it might look like in Sacramento afterwards? Like, would you be more interested in a Malik Monk, for example, right? Like thinking that Fox may be gone in 2 weeks. Would you ever kind of anticipate trades like this and kind of look at where the opportunities might lie after the fact?
Exactly, Dane. That's a really great question. And I think kind of to your point, a lot of people are looking at San Antonio, what it does for them. I think for a fantasy player, the bigger advantage you have is going in and acquiring not even Malik Monk, but guys like DeMar DeRozan. Those are the kind of players that are going to step into that role, that are going to pick up more usage. Now, a lot of that does depend on what comes back. If the Kings are able to get, say, Stephon Castle, if they're, as maybe the Spurs don't want to use picks, they'll slide him over. You're getting a guard. Maybe there's just not space for those two guys together. So you have to see what comes back, but I think in general, that's what I would be looking at. You take De'Aaron Fox off that Sacramento Kings team, and there is a lot of usage, a lot of minutes where the ball could be in the hand of two guys. And I think, again, depending on who comes back, if Castle comes back, maybe he gets some more minutes here, but I would look to DeMar DeRozan. I would look to Malik Monk. I think those are going to be the two guys that'll lead the offense a little bit more once Fox is out of town.
All right, fair enough. And I know we talked about it before, Noops. You think the Spurs are definitely viable, especially because him or in-laws, his wife has ties down there to San Antonio as well, right?
Yeah, De'Aaron Fox grew up in Houston. His wife and her whole family live in San Antonio. From what I understand, De'Aaron Fox basically spends most of his off days flying back to San Antonio to see his family. I think his newborn actually lives there for now. So everything is set up for him. I think,
definitely
there's a lot more reasons. And honestly, some of this stuff's real simple. I mean, who the hell doesn't want to play basketball with Victor Wembanyama?
Word.
Yeah.
I mean, listen.
You be closer to home and play with Wemby. It's a win-win.
Exactly. Like, he's going
Huge
home
win.
there. The family ties are there.
Tax.
And this idea of the two of them together, the kind of pick and rolls that can happen, I think are very interesting. And the West should be shaking in their boots if you want to know the truth. All right, I've got one more play on this one, and this is predicated not necessarily on this guy, but on one of his teammates that will not be there. Give me Miles Bridges over 7.5 rebounds against the Brooklyn Nets. The man that is not going to be there is Mark Williams. Mark Williams has been ruled out already for this game with a foot injury. I think Bridges is the one who picks up the slack and gets more rebounds. There's nobody else on Charlotte who averages like over 5.5 rebounds a game that's really in the rotation, right? So I think Bridges gets this. He's got 8 in his last game, but really it's the idea that Williams is not there. And here's the thing. I love the matchup against Brooklyn, okay? The Brooklyn Nets, they shoot 43.9% from the floor. That is the 3rd worst in the NBA. You know who the worst in the NBA is? His very own Charlotte Hornets, quite frankly, okay? So there are going to be opportunities left, right, and center. And with Williams not there, I think Bridges is obviously the guy that I think gets an uptick in this. Our models over at FTN project Bridges to get 10.6 rebounds in this one. That is an 18% edge in our models. And quite frankly, no one else is going to be there to board, and the opportunities will be there with two of the worst shooting teams in the league. The one thing I'll say about this, go on over to Prop Shop. You see how I have it right now at minus 135 at FanDuel. If minus 135 is a little too juicy for you, there are books out there that are hanging 8.5 boards for Bridges. Obviously, it's at a different number, more like minus 110. I'll take the lower number and I'll pay the juice. I don't care, because to me, a win is a win. And the guy got 8 boards last time. So I would hate to be vacillating between 7.5 and 8.5, and the dude lands on 8. I'll pay the minus 135 over at FanDuel, but I do think Miles Bridges gets to this number. All right, guys. That will do it for us. What else do we got going as we get into the kind of like, I've heard the silly part of the season, right? Jimmy Butler De'Aaron Fox. I think Kyle Kuzma is someone who could also potentially be on the move. Noops and Prop, I'll get you out of here on this. Like, what else are we going to see? What other names are we going to hear? What else do we think is going to be different between now and kind of like after the trade deadline, after the All-Star break, Noops?
Yeah, I think one of the nice things is we'll get these teams a little bit more locked in. If you start and look at some of the results the last week or so, some of these guys are ready to get to All-Star break.
Right.
Everyone that doesn't go to the All-Star game has a week off, folks. Think about how you behave at work when you know you've got a week off to do whatever you want. Now, not that you are the same person as an NBA player. We're all human beings, though. When you got a week to go spend somewhere at the beach or maybe relax, you definitely don't put in your best effort. So at the very least, I think we'll have everybody back healthy, locked in, and just keep an eye on some secondary pieces. Guys like Cameron Johnson could make a big difference to a lot of NBA teams. I think it might be a little bit more quiet of a deadline. Again, this is going to be the first real year of second aprons and first aprons and stuff like that. You know, for example, the Butler Beal trade, that's the only way it works. The way Phoenix is basically set up, they have to go one player for one player, exact salary. So be careful. Make sure you do your homework. Again, if you're a fantasy player, if your future's better, that is looking into news and trying to get ahead of moves, just double check the rules and make sure that everything's actually viable. But I think we'll have a couple decent pieces moving again. I think Butler and Fox will be traded by the time we get to the deadline. A few other secondary guys, but don't expect maybe the fireworks we've seen from previous years.
Fair enough. Hey, Prop, any closing words from you on the way out?
I'm a Bucks fan, and I pray that they make a move. It seems like they are. I'm hearing a lot of rumors, so we'll see what's going on.
Listen, I was a Bucks fan last night, and they got washed by the Portland Trailblazers. Same dollar.
Should have read Hoops or Noobs.
I was on the Gary Trent Jr. 3 prop. I'm lucky that I got the threes and not the points. And that one, and I just could not believe that the Portland Trailblazers actually got that one done. But I digress. They absolutely did. So for my man, Prop God and Noops, of course, I am merely the spitting statistician Dane Martinez telling you, go on right now, get those plays in before the numbers move, and we'll see you next time over here at FTN. We're out of here. Peace.